Picture this: the most popular sport in our country, with teams gaining attendances never seen before. And yet, there still seems to be problems, with solutions eluding nearly all applicants to the recently vacated and then filled head job of the AFL, the Chief Executive Officer. After a decade in the role, the last season of which being due to poor planning, Gillon McLachlan officially handed in his resignation and stood down from the role. Amid countless rumours of who or who may not take up the role, ABC posted an article on the 12th of April 2022, the day Gillon McLachlan officially handed in his resignation. The article contained 5 potential candidates as to who may fill the role: Kylie Watson-Wheeler, Kylie Rogers, Travis Auld, Brendan Gale, and Andrew Dillon. There was even a report about Josh Frydenberg being another potential candidate. However, the role was eventually awarded to Andrew Dillon, and Laura Kane was handed the Executive General Manager of Football. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Premiership Quarter. Today, I'm going to be doing a different style of video, which I leaked in my most previous Who Beats Who video, where I'm going to be doing a bit more of a deep dive style of video with an opinion embedded into it, creating a nice story. It's something that I've picked up from watching more NBA style video and content creators, something like a Rusty Buckets. And I think that with the way I want to move forward with my content, this is a good idea. So if you wouldn't mind, please hit the like button if you enjoy this video. Subscribe to this channel if you enjoy this type of content. Leave your thoughts in the comments below as well. And with that being said, let's get straight into the video. What I do feel absolutely certain about, that whoever replaces me will be completely different. They will have to bring their own style and be their own person, man or woman. Gillon McLachlan was a great CEO for the league, overcoming multiple significant obstacles, such as handling the court cases during the Essendon drug scandal, multiple rule changes and personnel shifting throughout his time, and balancing the introduction of 2 new AFL clubs, the Greater Western Sydney Giants and the Gold Coast Suns. Also, don't forget the introduction of the newly established AFLW League, as well as a global pandemic that halted the 2020 AFL season that required great planning in order to even complete. However, after his time as the CEO, Gillon McLachlan seems to have left the role with the game in a slightly questionable position regarding the state of the game, and in my opinion, with one specific component being the most decisive: the MRO and tribunal system. How does such an important piece of regulating our game be in such a dreadful position? How does the MRO and AFL tribunal make and enforce decisions that seem to lack regulations to follow? Should this be the main focus for the new CEO, Andrew Dillon, of the AFL? And where does the AFL go to now? Action or result? That is the question burning through the minds of people like David King, a media personality who is known for his rigid stance on head trauma in the AFL. It has come to the point where almost without fail, a new incident occurs every week. Is this a good look for the AFL? Absolutely not. But to Laura Kane and Andrew Dillon, the recently appointed bosses of the AFL, the head trauma has started to turn into a headache. The consistent inconsistency plaguing the decision-making with the MRO and AFL tribunal process has been nauseating to keep up with, and has been a problem for more than just 1 year. The inability to apply the same logic from an incident in 2021 that caused a 2-match suspension to a similar incident in 2023 has caused major concern, and something needs to be done. At the start of the 2024 season, specifically during the pre-season matches, the AFL's tribunal system attempted to enact more severe punishments than what they had been doing in prior seasons. A dangerous tackle from Sam Powell-Pepper was punished with 4 weeks, a coherently more scathing suspension than what AFL fans had become used to. Jimmy Webster's late high bump on Jai Simpkin was disciplined with a monstrous 7-week suspension. People thought it was a sign of what's to come, a final warning before the much needed change to better the game. Unfortunately, as we stand here 13 weeks later, there seems to be even more confusion in the decisions made by both Michael Christian and the board on the AFL tribunal. The date is the 3rd of June, and already there have been 25 suspensions for the 2024 season, and that's not including the ones that have been thrown out. Ranging from 1 week to 7 weeks, players have been hit, tackled, and bumped in many different circumstances, as well as verbally abusing the other players using homophobic slurs. But with such poor decision making heading one of the most important aspects of the game we play today, it seems worse off than almost ever. After Jimmy Webster's late hit on Jai Simpkin during the last pre-season match, North Melbourne coach Alistair Clarkson had a few words to share at quarter time to Webster.
"You're a cocksucker. You'll be suspended for that."
These were, allegedly, the words Clarkson used to express his feelings after the hit. The resulting penalty for, once again, allegedly saying these words was a suspended 2-match ban as well as a $20,000 fine. This incident could, sparsely, be compared to an incident from Taylor Walker all the way back in 2021, when on the 17th of July at a Sandful match, he made a racist remark to a North Adelaide player, Robbie Young. This was handed a 6-match suspension with an identical $20,000 fine. While it might be difficult to compare racist and homophobic slurs to each other, and over a 2.5-year span where things would have changed, you can most certainly compare the recent incidents of Jeremy Finlayson and Will Powell. In round 4, Jeremy Finlayson was heard on an umpire's microphone saying a homophobic slur towards an Essendon player. He reported this to team officials at the end of the quarter and was sanctioned with a 3-match suspension. In round 8, Will Powell reportedly also said a homophobic slur to a Brisbane player. If you were to take a guess at his suspension, what would you have said? 3 weeks? Maybe he got off, just like Alistair Clarkson. But no, he got an increased 5-match suspension. The AFL opted to go for a harsher punishment for Will Powell because the incidents were so close together. There can be many things that cause confusion, but having a set of rules and inconsistently punishing players and coaches for breaking those rules certainly causes confusion. Who knows? Maybe there isn't even a set of rules that the AFL follows, because it certainly doesn't seem clear to me. One of the biggest reasons the MRO and Tribunal Board seem to be failing with their decisions is due to the inconsistent implementation of the rules. Over the last 5 years, I believe there are multiple instances where there are actions that share enough similarities without similar enough consequences, and that is a major cause for concern. So that is why I will be comparing incidents that I believe didn't get the correct treatment, but also showing the consistency by comparing incidents that were handled correctly. In the qualifying final in 2023 between Collingwood and Melbourne during the opening term, Angus Brayshaw charged out of the front of the centre clearance. After taking a few steps and launching the football inside 50, Braden Maynard took initiative and barreled his way towards the ball, pressuring Brayshaw as he kicked. He jumped in order to smother the ball, but unfortunately didn't make any contact and came crashing into Brayshaw. There was outrage. The incident instigated a tussle between the players, and the media were immediately calling for him to be suspended, with a lengthy punishment to follow. During the week, the indecisiveness between former players and media members was an indicator of the lengthy tribunal case to follow. Come Tuesday night, a 4-hour hearing is what it took to come to a decision. The tribunal determined Maynard wasn't careless in choosing to smother or in the way he landed, while also didn't engage in the act of bumping. Braden Maynard was free to play. However, the question still remains of whether this was the correct call. In my opinion, absolutely. Braden Maynard made a football act that unfortunately resulted in the concussion of Angus Brayshaw. and unfortunately even more so, this forced him into an early retirement. How many times have we seen players get knocked out in marking contests? Do we want to remove one of the biggest draws to the game, the specky, because there is a danger of concussions? Maynard, I believe, twisted his body in order to brace himself for the contact that was on its way. Brayshaw landed on the same foot he kicked off, resulting in him moving ever so slightly in the path of Maynard. Maynard has the right to protect himself, hence bracing in the way he did, by curling himself and using his shoulder. This technique is taught, at least in my experience, throughout junior football in order to protect yourself during a collision. Unfortunately, there are a myriad of options to compare this incident to. Tom Stewart's bump on Dean Prestia in 2022, which you'll read about soon. David Mackay's hit on Hunter Clark in 2021. However, I have chosen to compare this incident to Keziah Pickett's forceful collision with Bailey Smith in 2023. Keziah Pickett has been known to play with what some call an edge. While this edge has certainly helped him become one of the best players in his position, it comes at a cost. In round one of the 2023 season, during the second quarter, Bailey Smith received the ball on the run, danced around a Melbourne player, and rolled onto his left boot to send the football inside 50. Smith was met with a thunderous hit by Keziah Pickett. Unexpectedly, he bounced straight back up and was able to play out the rest of the game with no signs of concussion. The hit by Pickett caused a fair bit of outrage in the media, specifically after he was handed a fairly inconsequential 2-week suspension. The MRO found that Pickett made careless conduct with high impact and high contact. The hit being graded as careless conduct is one of the biggest grievances I have ever seen whilst following this game, and I also believe there is an argument to make that this contact could have been classified as severe over high, resulting in what should have been a larger suspension. These incidents happened in the same year, yet there is such a large discrepancy between the resulting suspensions. The AFL wanted a 4-match suspension on Braden Maynard, who made a football act. The MRO handed Keziah Pickett a 2-match suspension from what some can only call a reckless bump. How does this make any sense? What happened over the year that caused these decisions to be handled so poorly? Why does the AFL continue to shoot itself in the foot? One of the big drawbacks with the MRO rulebook is the careless versus intentional conduct. A player intentionally commits a classifiable offence if the player engages in the conduct constituting the reportable offence with the intention of committing that offence. An intention is a state of mind. Intention may be formed on the spur of the moment. The issue is whether it existed at the time at which the player engaged in the conduct. A player's conduct will be regarded as careless where it constitutes a breach of the duty of care owed by the player to all other players. Each player owes a duty of care to all other players, umpires, and other persons not to engage in conduct which will constitute a reportable offence. In order to constitute such a breach of that duty of care, the conduct must be such that a reasonable player would not regard it as prudent in all the circumstances. The game is played at such a breakneck speed, and with the rules being up for interpretation and in a so-called grey area, that any somewhat comparable incidents can be classified as either careless or intentional. It also compounds the issue that the rules are up for interpretation for the severity of impact. This can be seen when comparing the Keziah Pickett and the Tom Stewart hit on Dean Prestia in round 15 of 2022. Stewart's hit on Prestia was sent directly to the tribunal, which theoretically enforces a minimum of a 3-week suspension. The AFL itself, who are represented during the tribunal hearings, were arguing for a 4-week suspension, and the ruling was given as careless conduct, severe contact, and high impact, resulting in the 4-week suspension. My question is, however, if Tom Stewart ran past the ball and intentionally bumped Deon Prestia, how can this be graded as careless? This situation also brings up another problem that arose this year, which is, should the player's character be included in his defence? The Geelong representative who argued for a ruling of 3 weeks, made the following argument. Stewart's character and the defender's remorse for his actions should have been considered in giving a lesser sanction. The idea that a player can get a decreased sanction based on an apology and him being considered a good bloke is utterly ridiculous and was put under a microscope this year already. Charlie Cameron laid a dangerous tackle on Melbourne defender Jake Lever in round 5 of the 2024 season. He had only pinned one of Lever's arms. However, the dumping action he used to force Lever into the ground is officially considered a dangerous tackle, and rightly so. This often results in a 1-week suspension and was predictably handed down by the MRO. The Brisbane Lions challenged this result, and during a hearing at the tribunal, the apparent good bloke tax saved Charlie Cameron. The nucleus of Cameron's non-suspension looks to revolve around the star small forward being a role model with an impressive AFL career, aided by character references from Eddie Betts and Gregory Ebert. The dangerous tackle wasn't even graded below medium contact. It was simply thrown out because Cameron is seen as a good person and, after 207 games at Adelaide and Brisbane, had never been suspended. After leaving North Melbourne at the end of 2019, Brad Scott took up a position in the AFL. After moving around the positions and adding new roles in the football department and under Andrew Dillon, Scott was elevated from head of AFL Victoria to general manager of football in 2021. His new portfolio will include umpiring, talent pathways, game analysis, the match review office, and the competition committee. Part of Brad Scott's new role was to manage rule changes and oversee the MRO, Michael Christian. At the end of the 2022 season, Brad Scott was offered a head coaching position at the Essendon Football Club, which he accepted. Now, given the AFL had just created this role only 2 years prior, you'd think it was a priority to fill it in, wouldn't you? Well, it didn't take them a week, not a month, but an entire year to fill the position, headed by Laura Kane. Over the span of Scott's tenure, and now also Kane's, I struggle to remember a genuine sign of change and have only heard quotes about improving the system and making genuine change, which are clearly of no significance. With an already inconsistent system in both the MRO and tribunal, having a third system to try and overrule decisions seems extremely over the top and only undermines the importance of the already struggling systems. In 2021, Toby Green was handed a hefty 3-week suspension for making contact with an umpire at the end of the first quarter. Toby bumped the umpire whilst talking about a decision, and the question for the MRO and the tribunal became, was the contact accidental or intentional, and how significant of a punishment should he get? During the tribunal hearing, the AFL board demanded a 6-week suspension to be handed to Toby Green, whilst the tribunal board only dealt him a 3-week suspension. This automatically shows an inconsistent implementation and interpretation of the rules, confusing players and fans alike. After the initial hearing was over and Toby was handed the 3-game suspension, the AFL decided to challenge this call, acting as if they themselves were a team going to the tribunal and attempting to overrule this decision. There is a need for the penalty to adequately denounce this behaviour. Respect for umpires is at the heart of the integrity of the game. We shouldn't be distracted by the reference to the contact or level of contact being relatively minor. If the contact was major, Mr. Green probably wouldn't be playing AFL football again. If the entire point of the tribunal was for teams to challenge the MRO and make an argument with evidence gathered about the incident, how can anyone in their right mind create an appeals board that does this exact same thing but with different people making the call? The AFL also attempted to ignore the amount of contact Green made and focused more on the action he made. If this sounds familiar, it's because it is. Action versus result. The AFL are willing to ban Toby Green an extra 3 games based on his actions, yet the tribunal system isn't able to consistently implement that same idea the AFL wished to represent. The system is broken, and now the AFL isn't helping itself. So, where does the improvement come from? I believe that a serious overhaul of the rule set needs to occur, and whilst that may be considered too drastic of a change, redefining a set of rules that realistically allows for a margin of error would be better than what happens today. Clarifying the difference between intentional and careless conduct would be a huge stride towards success. Ensuring that a player isn't suspended based off of the fact that they're a good bloke, but also trying something new might not hurt. Maybe we scrap the two system way and only have one team that goes through every incident and grades it under the rule book that is redefined, and the decision that they make is final. No MRO to tribunal to AFL appeals board. Who knows? But whatever it is, change needs to happen, and it needs to happen sooner rather than later. Well, that's going to be the end of the video. It's a new style, and I really wanted to sort of share how I wanted to do it with you guys. I'm hoping to make a few more of these kinds of videos. I've got a couple more ideas that I want to sort of make. One's going to be about positional changes and where I think the AFL might be heading. Another's about the two ruck system. And so it's going to be a lot more effort for the videos to make, but I'm still going to be doing my tips videos. I'm still going to be doing more of my reaction videos, talking about the team each week. And I'm hopefully going to try get back into my power rankings videos as well in a couple of weeks when I do it. But that's going to be the end of this video. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this type of content. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and thanks for watching.